Well, it's love in the air, and I am so honored to be here with Pastors Marvin and Veda McCoy talking about 40 years of love.
40
40.
years.
Oh
40.
my goodness. I love love. So this is going to be a great conversation that I think that the world needs to hear.
Thank you.
We need to hear our love stories and we need to hear how God has intertwined. So
Yes.
I want to jump right in. How did it all start? Where did you guys meet?
Okay.
And what year was it?
Okay, so we met. I want to say, well, officially met is kind of hard to say. There was an event that she probably doesn't remember that, we were singing in Youth for Christ at the time. And after one of the events, we were at Bob's Big Boy up on 450. And Jerome Bell, or Pastor Jerome Bell, he brings in Veda and he this is Veda Nicely. He introduced to the whole group. And so it was like, hey. And I was with somebody at the time.
No, you was dating.
I
Say
was dating.
you were
I
there
was
on a
dating.
date. Tell the whole
Well,
piece.
And I was like, wow, who is this? And so, we
While you were on a date.
yeah,
While he's on a date.
We're all hanging out. You know how we did, how we used to do after church here. And so, but then Pastor Bell and Bishop Keith Martin were in concert, and I was a musician, and I can't remember if I got there first or she got there first, and we just started talking, and one thing led to another.
Wow.
Yeah.
What were your first what's your first impression when you
I vaguely remember that night, but not specifically. So I do remember the concert with Bishop Martin and Pastor Bell. And I think you were already sitting there. I came in, I borrowed my mother's car. I had just gotten back from the Progressive Baptist
convention
of Christian education, right?
Oh, okay.
I think it was in St. Louis that year. So this is June of '83. I'm going into my senior year of high school.
Gotcha.
So I met him there and I sat down and I recognized him from the choir and we chatted until the service started. And then after the service, we're saying our goodbyes and congratulating them and hugging. And I said, well, call me sometime, but I knew he didn't have my number, Cheryl. That's what we call
Dating.
convention talk. Well, dating. Okay,
Dating a little bit.
And so I was saying goodbye. I turned around, boom, there he is with a piece of paper. He said, hi, Marvin has always been smooth. People don't know this about this little dude right here. He said,
I can imagine.
you understand? Southeast on display. So he said, I'm gonna call you if I don't have your number. So I gave him my number, and he didn't call that night. We were singing at Springfield the next day. And I was like, who are you in the car? Because you were on the driver's side. And I leaned in.
Victor Johnson.
Victor Johnson.
Oh,
That's how far this. He was in the car with Vic. And I said, you ain't call me. He said, I'm going to call you. And he called me that night. We talked all night. And the rest is history.
That is funny.
I couldn't come across the press.
Right. Even though you weren't.
I was.
Well, impressed. I like it. That whole DC smoothness.
Yeah. Oh, man. I was a little girl from Alexandria. I was like, he liked me.
I think that's so cute. So when did you know Pastor Veda was the one?
Oh, wow. I want to say it was probably shortly after we made it official, because, we were going around and people was asking whether or not, we were together, and she would say, no. Like,
that's not why. My mother was like, the gentleman, you have to be a lady, they need to ask you. And you hadn't asked me to be your girlfriend.
Right. It was the era.
You understand?
You had to make it official.
Right.
Yeah.
It was never like we just talking, or like in this generation, we just good. I mean, what would they say?
We friends or
we
whatever.
friends. Some they would say. My son would always. I'd be like, y'all date, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
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 But it was shortly after, I can't tell you an exact date, but shortly after we started dating, I knew she was the one. I knew she was the one.
Yeah.
I went, the only person I told my brother at that
Yep.
time.
And he told me.
Yep. I said, I think I'm gonna marry her.
Oh.
That's what he told me. There was church at Tridestone. If you know anything about Tridestone, and it's funny that we are remembering all of these events, I remember the outfits. So I might have to do something about outfits. But I remember what I was wearing when I was riding in the car with Mike, and he said, "My brother said he really liked you. He said he want to marry you." And I said, "Okay," because we were looking for a parking space.
So Mike told you that?
Mike told me in the car riding around Northeast DC because there was hardly any parking around Tridestone. It was afternoon service or whatever. But I remember because there was a place in DC where it used to take me and it overlooked the city.
Morris Road.
Morris Road.
So take up on the hill.
And took me on a hill. You know, he was smacking. He knew he was smacking.
Looking over, seeing the city. What's that? Our Lady of Perpetual Health.
Yeah. And so we had sang at Bible Way, Youth for Christ, of course. And, you know, that was our spot. And he took me there. And I was like, they keep asking me if we go together, if we together. And he said, well, let's make the rumors true. I was like, oh. He said, how about we make these rumors true? Yeah. And of course, I loved him, you know, from the very beginning. So that was that.
And you guys were young, like young. Like
I was 16.
I didn't know. let me put that out there. I did not know.
How old were you?
I did not know. I was 19.
Gotcha.
When I was 1983. I was 19 when
so you had already graduated.
Yes,
you were senior year high school.
I was not. The summer of before my
before
senior.
even going into
right. It was the summer of '83.
It was the summer of '83. I graduated June '84.
Got you. So we're the same.
Yeah.
Because I graduated same year.
Yeah. 80s. So, what you took me out for my birthday, and you didn't know how old I was turning. When I told him I was turning 17.
I could have dropped my
fell in love with a minor. What helped me drop this fork right
Yep, that was it.
Yeah, that was so good. That's such a great story.
And so we got engaged prom night. Her prom. Yep.
So she wasn't. So were you 18 at the point? No.
At that point, prom I probably wasn't because prom is in May.
Yeah.
About to turn.
I didn't. My birthday's in July. I'm a summer baby.
Oh.
So you know, summer babies are really
So
transition.
17, engaged, on your way to college, because you were talking about you did your undergrad.
Yep. We were going to wait, but
you had to wait till she was turning. I was like, I'm gonna love you right now, but we're gonna have to wait. Yeah. And so when did you actually get married?
June 1985, because I left the summer of June '84. He took me to my prom. He was there for graduation, and of course,
so the engagement took place at the prom.
At what's the seafood place in Southwest? Hogate's, Phillips.
Okay.
Oh, wait,
no, it was a flagship.
At that time, but it was down there. Maybe at that time, that's what
it would be the flagship of Hogate's. I can't remember. It was one of the. It was two big restaurants.
That was the prom spot, right? A lot of people were there. People that knew us from Youth for Christ, and so he asked me to marry him, and of course we were going to wait. I remember he got the ring from Mellard Jewelers, and I had the baby size. That was back then. That was back then when they had the baby size, the medium size, and the large size in the same set.
You did not care.
Did not care. I have pictures. Y'all watch the pictures. Picture me looking down at that ring. You couldn't tell me anything. So but I was homesick because I went to James Madison for a transitional program, summer program, and I think I asked you to come see me or something like that. No, I wanted you to come pick me up because Youth for Christ had to sing. And he did not. While I was in school. Just young and dumb and don't know no better. Like, enjoy God. I was like, no.
But when you in love, because I went to college in love with somebody else too. Praise God. God delivered.
Amen.
And we're grateful. And so I know what that feels. You know, when I look back and think, if I would have married
Honey, I can think of some high school, bows that would have messed us up, right?
Right, but see, I can imagine that feeling of what's happening back home, can't focus here and all of that. Yeah. So, so you had shared that at one point you left James Madison.
No, I packed up everything that weekend.
Yes.
Anybody that know, I'm headstrong, you know what I'm saying? So, it's God has, with the Holy Ghost, been able to work that out for my good. But when you're a teenager, sometimes you're like a bull in a china shop. You don't know. So, we got into it. Of course, I was like, I want to come home. They were out there partying because this is a summer program for children, you know, to make you ready for the fall semester. So I never started James Madison. Right. I was there on a partial track scholarship.
But then I'm hearing Mama saying, but that's messing you up going to undergrad. Like, you supposed to be starting in the fall.
So let me tell you something. At that time, I caught the Greyhound bus home. I had the little hamper. Everything was in the hamper, TV, everything. And I'm on that bus. I don't know how I got on that bus because I didn't have cab fare home, but I told the cab driver that my mother and father, my daddy would pay me when I get there. So I knock on the door with all my stuff from James Madison. I'm not telling the story. Am I telling you? I knock on the door and I said, boo, boo, boo. And my daddy opened the door. He said, Irene, this girl done came home. I said, Daddy, you got to pay the cab driver. Took my stuff upstairs and sang at that engagement that night. This is crazy. So I started George Mason in the fall. And I went to George Mason for a year. And I was like, I want to get married.
Gotcha.
I want to get married.
So you got married while in college?
Yes. I stopped college, though. I didn't go back to college for like 15 years.
Oh, gotcha.
I finally finished in 1999.
Spoiled, though, too, Pastor Veda. Because
baby.
My mama's nickname is Baby, but she was not Baby
by
I was any
spoiled.
imagination. That would have been my life, I think.
And there's a difference between being spoiled and you have to have your way. That my father would always, that's your problem. You got to have your way. So I have learned that things don't always go my way. Right. And that's a good thing. But I'm still spoiled. Exactly. But I'm still spoiled. I understand the difference now. But yeah, that was a strange time. But I really believe that it was God. Because I can, like you say, I can only imagine how my life may have taken different paths had I not been just so headstrong at the time and bent on having my way, right?
Wow. So. How did you deal with that? Were you like, okay, were you happy she was back? Like, what happened?
I was caught up. I was shocked because she didn't tell me she was back. She did not tell me. She just shows up at this concert, and I'm like, you are back? And she's like, you ain't come and get me.
So she mad.
She mad.
I made my own way back.
She mad. You ain't come and get
Lord,
me.
Forgive me.
But you know, when you talk about Youth for Christ and you talk about the city, again, we're the same age, so it was such a big phenomenon for the city and for young ministers. And we were serious about ministry.
Serious about God, serious about ministry. Everything else in life was secondary. Yeah. I didn't have friends from high school. I was on the track team. We were world-class track team, still hold records, did pin relays and all of that. But I did that Monday through Friday and then whatever was on Saturday. Saturday afternoon, all day Sunday, my life was church
and music.
And this man at that,
So I went to church, but I wasn't that dedicated. I went to First Rise in Mount Zion, and if you know, the Baptist church, we could literally be in choir rehearsal planning to go to the go-go. Like, it was like...
Having kids, may he rest in peace.
Amen. And it was probably why I was dating who I was dating, doing things. But I did, develop relationship while in college, and I do remember Youth for Christ being pivotal, right? Yeah. But I was living in Salisbury, Maryland at the time of school, but just you were a star because you were a lead singer in this group, and it was like coveted, right? The group itself, and then all of the phenomenal musicians and artists that came out of it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. It was just so pivotal for us. So I can imagine y'all were an item. It's like Veda and Marvin.
Yeah.
So so let's transition a little bit. We're gonna fast forward and let's talk about some of the greatest lessons that you learned in this 40-year marriage.
I think one of the greatest lessons that I think we have learned, not just about us, but just about marriage in general, that all marriages can work, but all marriages don't work. You've got to do the work. And it's not necessarily taxing or hard. It's just the follow through. You've got to do the work. You've got to do the work. I learned early on that she had my best interests at heart.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it took some bumps and bruises along the way, but I had to learn that she had my best interests at heart.
Yeah. What about you, Pastor B?
I had to learn the vast magnitude of the commitment that marriage is. I think for me, of course, high school girl, boyfriend from DC and all of that, I was caught up in planning the wedding and, being the bride and, the attention. I mean, I loved him and I was definitely devoted, to our relationship, but I don't think I understood the commitment. And it wasn't until my son was born, like a year or so later, that I realized, wow, these are lives. This is a human being, who has extended his heart to me, his life. And that took some years to learn.
Gotcha.
And, as he said, we've had some bumps and some bruises, and we have agreed to finally talk about one of those seasons that not a lot of people know about. I mean, our close friends know, close friends at the time, but that we just, and I know that God was on our side. I know that you can do the work, but if you lean on God, but you have to make that commitment. It is such a responsibility. Yeah. You're taking on somebody else's life because guess what? I learned I couldn't be a husband, right?
Yeah.
Right, and so I had to stop telling him what I thought,
that
a husband,
to do as
right, as a husband,
and vice versa,
and I had to focus on being a wife and a wife to him. So that was, I really learned.
So you guys got married so young, and the bumps and bruises I'm sure happened early part of the marriage. That as you got older, and now I'm 28 years in my marriage, and so looking back on some things, and we dated. Our courtship was awful. It was awful. That's another time for another day. But the marriage was amazing because we went through a lot of our trials while dating.
Right.
So when we got married, we was ready. You guys had to grow up together.
Right.
That's
you
exactly
had to go
what
through
we
all of
did.
those.
You're still going to go through them.
Yeah.
Whether you're married, whether you're, dating or whatever, you have to grow into this thing.
Yeah.
Nobody goes
some of the
into it
tumultuous times.
ready.
So I would probably say the most difficult time, and it's something that I don't think I've ever talked about. We were going through a rough period. We were kind of in our own ways, and so, but we got divorced. We got divorced, and
Wait a minute.
yeah,
Okay. Why did we get divorced?
yeah. And so I, thinking about why or why we got divorced, silly stuff, it's just, again, the two of us getting in our own way. And so I got fed up, and so I said, okay, I'm going to divorce. I filed for a divorce.
Wow.
She uncontested it though too.
I didn't even know what a contestant was.
Like, whatever.
I was on the road with the Winans at the time. Don't get God started. Meyer was a baby, and my mother, God bless her soul. I mean, she knew the girl she had raised, and she knew I was just like crazy. So she brought the Winans came to town, did the show. That we knew some people who were in it, and so we auditioned, and I got picked. I have no idea. Wow. Yeah, and so I had this opportunity to go on the road, and my mother said, "Go, please go, please go." And so,
well, I can understand that because it's like don't miss opportunity.
Yeah, and saving me from myself.
Gotcha.
You see what I'm saying? Because he was well within his right to divorce me. Like, what I'm saying? I was a piece of work, but I never thought he would, right? So while I was on the road, he divorces me. But then also while I'm on the road, he files for divorce and I get served these papers. And then while I'm on the road, I also have this epiphany. And I don't know if you remember this song. And we started talking on the phone. My mother brought Meyer to, I think where I was in Detroit. And of course, then I'm crying because I got this baby and I'm taking him from his father. My mother sitting there, it's like, go ahead, go to practice. We'll be right here, me and your baby. So I was like, and when I left, I still remember the night that I told the cast that I was leaving. And Vicki Wine was like, are you crazy? Do you know the people who are lined up for this opportunity? And I was like, I got a family. I got to get home to my husband or whatever. So,
and so what we did was, So there was no break-in service.
Yeah.
The
Because
day.
I was going to ask how long were you?
Oh no,
Day,
we were
it was,
yeah.
we probably, it may have been 2 3 months before we were talking on the phone and all that type of stuff.
So
Well,
y'all just broke up.
Right,
right. We
it
broke
was just
up,
broke
and I'm
up.
telling you,
We
it doesn't
broke up.
matter. Married, dating, I
broke
think that's
up.
exactly
So
that
we
was the
broke
most
up.
serious breakup. But we've been separated a few times after. It took about 6 years.
Yeah.
Got you.
It took about 6 years.
Because you're young, and so you had to grow up together, and you make so many major mistakes
Yeah.
in your 20s.
Yeah. So I
So-
still
I'm
remember.
sorry, and so before the divorce decree went into effect,
We were back together.
we got married again.
No,
We renewed
that's
our
not how that
vows.
happened.
Yeah, it did.
No, no. So you can't get married while you waiting on a divorce to be final, right? So by this time he's at Calvary because he had been there about what, a year at that time. So I'm coming home and we were acting like husband and wife, and Bishop Owens was like, y'all can't be fornicating. Say, Bishop, we are not fornicating. We are still married. The divorce wasn't final. So the divorce was final June 13th, and we have 2 anniversary dates, June 8th and June 14th. I still remember. I was like, I remember what I wore that day. That's when we started
Bishop
getting
Owens
closer. Bishop
remarried.
Owens remarried us. Pastor Susie, I think, was
So
in
it
the
was
back.
literally a matter of
Of days.
days
And
of the officials.
I'm trying to figure out, was that fornication? Was that adultery? Was that
I don't know what it is.
But it was good to you.
But Bishop, shut us down. You hear me? Bishop Owens is like, y'all gonna stop all this. Because he was staying at Calvary House.
staying at Calvary
Bishop
House.
Owens had a boarding house. I was staying there too. Me and Maya.
As a family. That was
As a family. Bishop, oh, come on, Marvin.
It's so good you can look back and laugh.
Honey,
So
let me tell you.
What advice would you give to those who you might counsel now, who might want to get married? Oh, I just love him and I just love her.
It takes more than love, I tell you that.
It takes more than love, and I would probably tell people, well, and I do, you have to go in with the understanding and with the mindset that divorce is not an option.
Yeah.
We're gonna work through everything. We'll work it out, whatever. I mean, unless they're beating you up upside your head.
Right.
But you have to have that mindset that this is who I want to be,
forever.
that this is forever, and we're gonna tough it out. Yeah.
Same here. And my husband and I are marriage advocates, and we're over the marriage ministry at our church as well. And that's been the focus thing. But I also would think, Pastor, that you have to be truthful about what really is happening in your relationship. Because I used to always teach that, marriages and divorce isn't an option, and realizing that people were really dealing with some tumultuous situations. So I'm glad you prefaced that with the whole abuse piece.
And I think we as a society and as a culture and a church culture as well, we've come a long way to understand that it does take 2, and that sometimes people make the decision that this is just not what I want. It's not that it can't work, because that's what we tell all of our the couples that we counsel, to marry or that are having difficulty. And but they have a right to, be happy. And I can say that you stay together for a variety of reasons over the course of any marriage with tenure, and that's not the only reason. Love and God and commitment, but there are different things that hold you together. Like when we were early on building a life, and of course, we built ministry.
Yeah.
We knew we were an example to others and all of that. Now we are, enjoying each other. The marriage does not stay the same, and you have to make sure that you are growing together. But you don't necessarily grow the same.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be one person. He has his life, I have mine. When I say his life, or the things that he likes to do and things that I like to do. So give each other the permission for that.
Oh, that's good. That's so good. And you preface ministry, so I want to talk about it. What is it like building ministry, and how has that affected your marriage at all?
Wow. Well, we started off ministry. It was music ministry together. She was singing, and at that time, I was writing. So pretty much all the songs that I was writing for Youth for Christ, she was the lead singer. And
Period.
that's how it was. I wrote for the rest of my life, to put her in concert before we got married, and so we've always worked together in ministry together. And while of course it does have challenges, there is a greater joy, I think. And even building a church and starting the church, the one of the good things about it is knowing that you have a security, you have a trusted person that's a part of your team, that you can trust, that you know is not going to stab you in the back, sabotage. You know that that person is not jealous of your gift,
somebody else,
or you, or
I don't play about that one. I'm telling you.
I like it.
you understand. And when you have,
I think we're the same.
yeah, y'all are. Yeah, I think so. Y'all are. But but when you have talented people, when you have two talented people that's coming together and working together, you can't be jealous of each other's gifting.
No.
And so I think our giftings complement each other. That makes doing ministry more effective and a joy.
Yeah. It certainly gives you purpose. I appreciate how my husband has always supported me. I thank God for the example that we had in Bishop and Archbishop and Pastor Susie, and how he pushed her and supported her. And we had to learn to make us the priority, and for us to have an identity apart and separate from marriage. From ministry. And that is what I would say we started picking up on after about that 6th or that 7th year. Like, who are you if you're not these two people? Because that's not who you are. That is the finished product. That is the polished presentation that God gives you the grace to present. But He is the one that sees, the ragged part of me, the unfinished part of me. And so it gives you purpose. It holds you true to yourself if you're going to do it well. Because we realize there are a lot of people who are in ministry who are married, and the ministry is their relationship.
It's their identity.
It's their identity, and that is not us.
That's so good. Because if that
I like
goes
him
away,
if he wasn't a bishop. I like him if he wasn't a musician. I like him.
Yeah. And I love that you said like, and not just love, because love is great, because that's a big affection. But you gotta like being with this,
because you're with them all the time.
Come on.
And as you get older and have less things to strive for, your home base is where you find yourself. You better
because at any given time, God could say, that was good.
Right?
Yep. Now you've raised up sons. I need at
Come
any
on now.
given time. If we're following the lead of Holy Spirit, some people die out of position, and God has shared with them to leave a long time ago. And so when that ends, you still have each other. You still have marriage. All right, moving forward, because I don't want to keep it later. I can pull. Moving forward, where do you see the next 40 years? Where do you see, moving forward? What does the next 40 look like for you guys? Or what would you like to do?
I've been starting first. Every question. So now it's your turn to start first. So yes.
Definitely a life with him. Our conversations now are about, how we want to retire. Where do we want to retire? What do we want, our financial situation to look like? And as you say, even what role will ministry play? Because ministry is also a business for us. Because we are in music. That's right. We're moving into some, couples ministry. And so I think, there are times now that it's just us, Cheryl, and I look at him and I know, I can't describe it. I can't always put it into words, but I know what love feels like because I love him. And it's not has anything to do with, like I said, the fanfare or marriage or popularity, being a singer, whatever, being in demand, being the minister of music, right? Because that was something else too. I was, the minister of music's wife, one of the biggest churches in the DMV, trendsetters,
in the DMV, in the world, people revere Greater Mount Calvary across the country. So,
but I'm like, it's him. So I believe that we're smart. We are determined to retire healthy and wealthy. And when I say wealthy, we don't have to be rich, but financially stable, and to still have life. We love to travel.
To do the things you want to do in retirement. Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Pastor?
So for me, and I appreciate all that stuff you talked about, ministry and all that stuff, but for me, it's doing the things that we enjoy doing. I want to travel more.
Yeah.
We are beach bums, poolside bums.
Us
It's
too.
and I love hanging out with Veda.
Yeah.
I just love being around her. So I want to spend the next 40 or plus years just together enjoying each other. Outside of church, I'm sure there's going to be some elements of ministry, but outside of church, outside of ministry, just
Us.
enjoying us
Because we've given
together.
so much,
Yeah.
and we gave so much at a young and early age that now, sometimes we'd be like, oh, we don't have anything to do. We don't have anybody to help. Say, okay, well, let's sit down somewhere.
Yeah.
We joke about it. We say, I don't know where somewhere is,
But you better
but I've
find
been looking for a long time somewhere and sit down.
Yeah.
So a lot of our time now is just being replenished and restored, because we were running around at 22, 23, 24. I had my second child.
Yeah.
Yeah, by the time I was 30, I was married. Did I graduated from college then? I just finished my degree, and had 2 children that we were devoted to. Like we did track.
Oh my God, basketball.
Basketball.
Not to mention you
My
guys had
son.
occupations outside.
And we
of
are
marriage.
bivocational, right? So I'm a career educator, and he is a career human resources specialist. So we had all of that going on. So there are times now we're just like, I'm saying, sit down, baby. I got the next 30 years. It's gonna come in a
Safety.
way.
I hear safety.
Yeah.
I hear, that's what I think about in my relationship. What I love to do the most is just sit with we could just sit and not speak and not do anything, just be in each other's
in the
space.
presence.
And I feel like safety is the next 40 years for you guys.
Thank
Safety
you.
in that, you ain't got to wonder about who he is. You ain't got, none of those things. Y'all did the work. Y'all went through the trials.
Yeah.
And
And
now
that's
it's the
what
right time.
and that's what I want us to, and I didn't necessarily mean ministry as a central focus for our lives, but legacy. Like, can we pass this on? That marriage, everything that you're going to go through, because you will. But that marriage can be rewarding. Marriage can be, this is not a front. I am a happily fulfilled and content married woman, And so
People need to see that.
they need to see it. So when I say we're moving into that, we have something really, really big that we're going to announce at the top of 2025 that we are actually inheriting from our spiritual parents to pour into the lives of other ministry couples. So we're really excited about that.
I like it.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, I love my wife. I love her, and I appreciate her so much. But we do have a passion for younger couples and couples in general, especially those that are like us, that have been involved in ministry and understand the pull that it has on a relationship. So yes, we want to leave a legacy. We want to be able to pour in.
I like it. I like it. So we're going to wrap here. And I just want to talk about your favorite memory and maybe just one last piece of advice to those who are in marriage at this point, not even those who are in ministry marriage, or just what you think your most valuable advice would be to a married couple. I know we could sum that up in one sentence as we wrap up.
I feel your eyes. I feel your eyes on me.
Let's start with one of your favorite memories.
Just one.
And then we'll close out with a piece of advice. Yeah.
So one of the things, as you said, ministry was very demanding on us while we were at Calvary. There were times my husband traveled probably 48 weeks out of the year, 3 or 4 days a week. But on some occasions, usually around the time of our anniversary, I got to travel with him, and we were in Minneapolis. There's a church there, and they had a foot washing.
Indianapolis. Yes,
And they had a.
Oh God, I can't remember.
We were with
well-known pastor.
It was
Pastor
Bishop. We were Bishop and co-pastor, and
Yes.
be the 4 of us traveling at those times. But, and they had this foot washing service, and this was not long after we had just reconciled. As I said, he was already at Calvary. I came after, and then we just began building our lives there together, and washing his feet.
Oh,
And I cried. I apologized. I made a renewed commitment to him, to just
So that
love
was the
him.
pivotal point from that
It
that trying
it was a
time.
moment I remember.
Got you.
That was, yeah, it was a part of making that decision that this is what I'm going to do. And whatever it takes, whoever has to go, whatever I have to, move into and move away from, this is what I want. And so I remember that.
Wow.
You gotta go top my memory. 'Cause
I've
been working on my questions.
I cannot. But no.
What do you
no,
remember?
Seriously, no. I'm starting to even remember the feelings and the emotions from that moment of just sitting there.
Oh, you remember it too?
Yes, washing her feet and the tears rolling down my eyes, the tears rolling down her eyes. Oh my God.
It took you back.
Listen, that was such a powerful, and yes, that was a reaffirming and a recommitment to our love and to our love story and to each other.
Yeah.
Man, oh man, you
You just
I
messed
messed
him
you up a little
you
bit.
done messed me up. You done messed me up. That messed me up.
I remember.
That messed
And
me
you know
up.
what? While you're working on your memory,
yourself.
I remember things like pivotal moments. When I watched my brother die, he was there. When my mother was putting my mother in the ground, he was there. I was in San Diego when my mother passed, and I couldn't get home. And he just so happened to come out there with me. I was on a work trip. A few times I travel for work. And so I was off site. They have these buses to transfer you from the hotel to where the conference was. It was I'll remember. Anyway. And so I got the word while I was away at the workshops. And I'm on the phone screaming, and my sister called me, said she didn't make it. And I'm just on the bus. My principal at the time rode back with me. But when those doors opened,
He's there.
he was waiting. And I know I fell off the bus. And I knew he had been calling all night to try to get me home.
Yeah,
But it was California.
it could not get a flight.
And
out.
then my father died. He was there.
Pivotal
So the times in life where you are inconsolable, where there are no words, where there's nothing to be said. When I got fired from my job, by the time I got home, he was there.
Ooh.
And
Safety.
So what you remember?
You keep messing.
What she said.
What she said.
But that's how women are, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We're
That's
in
why-
our heads.
that's why-
We're in our
that's why the
feelings.
word
Like,
safety
I
is
can
jumping
tell you
out
why.
at me.
I can tell you why. Now, you may do as the man, and he ain't even thinking. He just like, this, I'm going to do this. I'm going to handle mine.
This is what we do.
That's what they do.
do.
You see that? That's even an example of the
There.
difference between men, and
there.
we are going to remember.
We want to. I mean, that's why the
You
word
show
safety.
up.
You can do all you want.
We want to feel.
But if you're
safe.
not there for me,
Yeah.
I don't even care about that.
right, you can take.
I'll
that
find a
lead,
way.
babe.
I'm
I
sorry,
just-
boo boo. I'm sorry. Okay, let me stop talking.
So, one of my favorite memories. So I grew up. I'm a PK. My parents, my father pastored, and so growing up as a church kid, our vacations was convocations.
Conventions.
Yeah,
Conventions.
I was determined not to put my babies.
It was, and
God,
so,
amen.
so I didn't know anything. I was not familiar with a vacation at all, and it's just so happened to be when our kids were younger. She planned a trip. We talked about it, but I didn't really get the significance until we got there, and we went to Wildwood, New Jersey, and our kids were small, and just the family. It was just us on the beach together, at the pool together. It made me focus more on vacationing with my family. And then at that time, we would do a vacation with the kids, and then we would do our own vacation. So that spending time together, those are the types of things that made an impact on my life that I remember.
Got it.
Yeah, and of course,
Our stories are so
yes,
similar as you share your
Yeah.
ministry moments and marriage moments. I love that. All right, so finally, we're gonna wrap up with a word of wisdom that you'd like to share. I know
Word
that's hard to wrap up 40 years.
it's hard. It's hard to
One
wrap up
point.
40 years. A word of wisdom that I would leave, or that I would say to anyone who is getting married, thinking about getting married. Your marriage, your spouse, is your greatest investment, and it can be your greatest return.
Ooh,
You just
that's
got to
good.
invest properly.
Wow.
If you invest properly, sit it there, leave it there, just like you do with the stocks and all that stuff.
Come on.
You put it there, you leave it there. You cannot look over it all the time,
Oh, that's
but
good.
it pays off in the long run. As I think I said it early, stick it out, go through it. And Veda has been my greatest investment.
Ooh.
Investment of my time,
Yeah.
investment of my love,
Yeah.
investment of my support. She has been my greatest, and she has been my greatest return.
I love it. I love it.
Now he won. You won that one, girl. You won that one. You won that one. Oh my goodness. I will say. Oh my goodness.
Because I done made both of y'all cry. Well, y'all made me.
You get some tears. Everybody get some tears.
All right.
You got to figure out what matters to him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It has.
That's really good.
As a wife, and I would say it to husbands too, but husbands for the most part, a man not gonna put a ring on it and walk down the aisle, give you his name unless he wants to, be with you for the most part and, make you happy. Figure it out. Whatever, right? They're gonna keep throwing the noodles up against the wall until something sticks.
Yeah.
But with women, sometimes we have so much of an agenda. It gotta be this, it has to be this, it has to be this, the kids, blah, 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 blah. You gotta figure out what matters to him. I learned to play spades because
that's what he liked to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got into football.
Because that's what he likes. Yeah.
And ministry was important to him. I mean, I was like tripping, Cheryl. I was like them folks, you smiling at them all. You get in the car, you only got 3 words to say to me. If one word answers, but I was 23, y'all. But it was important to him. And the more I began to find joy in it because it pleased him, then I found my place, as you say, as a singer, my own identity. I wasn't, doing it out of whatever. So figure out what matters to watch. Watch. Close your mouth and watch. Watch him. How does he take his shirt off? What does he do with his clothes when he not throwing them in the floor, but I'm saying, how does he, you know what I mean? What matters? What shoes does he go to first? Those are the ones you can have ready for him when he comes in, So that's what I say.
That's good. That's good.
Thank you, sure. I'm just telling you,
so
you messed
good.
us up with that.
This is so good. And now you see why 40 years of marriage and the investment made into them as a couple has now paid off to a space of safety and rest. And so I'm looking forward to the future for the McCoys. And so we say happy anniversary. And we pray that you got something amazing of their life story. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.